Charlotte Whitmore never imagined that 4 careless words would destroy the life of the man who would save her heart. When she declared, "I'd never date a black guy," just as Marcus Hale walked through her office door for a job interview, she thought her biggest problem was embarrassment. But someone was watching, someone was waiting, and someone was about to turn their growing love into a weapon that could cost Marcus everything he'd worked for. What started as a security job became a fight for dignity. What began as professional boundaries became a battle for the right to love without fear. And what looked like a happy ending was just the beginning of a test that would force them to choose between safety and truth. When anonymous photos surface and the board demands answers, Charlie must decide. Will she sacrifice her career to save the man she's falling in love with? Or will she let fear win again? If you're watching this story unfold, hit subscribe and tell me where you're from. Because love like this deserves witnesses from every corner of the world. The late afternoon sun slanted through the property management office windows, casting long shadows across Charlotte Whitmore's desk. She pushed a strand of brown hair behind her ear and glared at her phone screen, scrolling through yet another disappointing dating app conversation. "I swear, Kayla, these guys are impossible," Charlie muttered to the concierge sitting across from her small office. "This one just asked me what my body count is, on a Tuesday afternoon. Like, seriously?" Kayla Reed looked up from sorting mail, her dark eyes sparkling with amusement. "Girl, you need to get off those apps. Nothing good comes from swiping right at lunch." Charlie tossed her phone onto a stack of maintenance requests. "You're probably right. I'm done with dating entirely. No more apps, no more setups, no more—" She threw her hands up in frustration. "I'd never date a black guy anyway. Too complicated with my family and—" A firm knock echoed through the office door. Charlie's words died in her throat. She felt the blood drain from her face as she looked toward the sound. Through the glass door, she could see a tall figure waiting patiently in the lobby. "Come in," she called, her voice slightly higher than normal. The door opened, and a man stepped inside. He was about 6 feet tall, with broad shoulders that filled out his navy button-down shirt. His dark skin had a warm undertone, and his eyes were kind but serious. He carried a manila folder in one hand and moved with the steady confidence of someone comfortable in his own skin. "Ms. Whitmore, I'm Marcus Hale. We spoke on the phone about the security position." Charlie's stomach dropped to her shoes. She could feel heat creeping up her neck as she realized he'd probably heard at least part of what she'd just said. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. "Of course," she managed, jumping to her feet so quickly her chair rolled backward. "Please, sit down. Thank you for coming in." Kayla quietly gathered her mail and slipped out, but not before giving Charlie a look that said, "We'll talk about this later." Marcus settled into the chair across from Charlie's desk, placing his folder neatly on his lap. If he'd heard her thoughtless comment, his expression didn't show it. Professional and calm, he waited for her to begin. Charlie rifled through the papers on her desk, trying to find his resume while fighting the urge to apologize or explain herself. She'd learned long ago that sometimes saying nothing was better than making things worse. "Right, yes, here we are," she said, finally locating his application. "Night security, 4 nights a week, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. "That's correct." His voice was deep and steady, with a slight southern accent that suggested he wasn't originally from Chicago. "I understand you need someone reliable for the overnight shift." Charlie forced herself to look at his resume instead of his face. Marcus Hale, 32 years old. Previous experience with a private security company downtown. Clean background check. References from 2 property managers who'd written glowing recommendations. "Your experience looks solid," she said, grateful to focus on facts instead of her embarrassment. Tell me why you're interested in this particular position. I like working nights, Marcus said simply. It's quieter, gives me time to think. And I need a job with consistent hours. Reliability matters to me. There was something about the way he said, reliability matters, that made Charlie look up. His expression was sincere, maybe even a little vulnerable. Not the cocky confidence she'd grown used to from most men who walked into her office. Her phone buzzed on the desk. Then again. Then a third time, in rapid succession. I'm sorry, Charlie said, glancing at the screen. This might be urgent. The caller ID showed Mrs. Patterson from 4B, one of their most anxious tenants. Charlie swiped to answer. Mrs. Patterson, what's... Charlie, oh, thank goodness. It's Lily, my granddaughter. She's stuck in elevator B and she's crying and I don't know what to do. The emergency button isn't working and... Slow down, Charlie said, already reaching for her keys. How old is Lily? She's 8. She was coming up from the mailboxes and now she's trapped and I can hear her crying through the door. Charlie was on her feet, Marcus forgotten for the moment. I'll be right there. Try to keep her calm through the door. She hung up and looked around for Luis, their maintenance supervisor, but his radio was silent, probably down in the basement working on the boiler again. Elevator emergency, she explained to Marcus, who had also stood up. I need to... I'll help, he said without hesitation. Charlie paused. You don't have to... A child is stuck. Let's go. They hurried out of the office together, Charlie's heels clicking against the lobby's marble floor. She could hear Mrs. Patterson's voice echoing from the elevator bank, high and worried. Lily, honey, someone's coming to help, the older woman was saying. Don't cry, sweetheart. Charlie knelt by the elevator doors and pressed her ear against the metal. She could hear soft sniffling from inside. Lily, my name is Charlie. I work here in the building. Can you hear me okay? Yes, came a small voice from the other side. I want my grandma. I know, sweetheart. We're going to get you out really soon. Are you hurt at all? No, but it's dark, and the buttons don't work. Charlie looked up at Mrs. Patterson, whose face was tight with worry. When did this start? Maybe 10 minutes ago. She went down to get my mail, and when she didn't come back, I went looking. Found her like this. Marcus had been studying the elevator control panel. The display shows it's stuck between the second and third floors, he said. Power cycling might reset it. You know about elevators? Charlie asked. Some. Worked maintenance before security. He looked at the emergency phone box next to the elevators. Mind if I try something? Charlie nodded, grateful for help. Marcus picked up the emergency phone and dialed an extension. Luis, it's Marcus Hale. I'm here with Charlie. We've got a child stuck in elevator B. Yes, between 2 and 3. Can you cycle the power from down there? He listened for a moment, then spoke into the phone again, but this time toward the elevator door. Lily, this is Marcus. I'm here with Charlie and your grandma. We're going to make the lights flicker in a second, but that's normal. It's going to help us get you out, okay? Okay, came the small voice. You're being so brave, Marcus continued. When the lights flicker, can you count to 10 for me? Out loud, so we can hear you? I can count to 100. That's amazing. Let's start with 10. Charlie watched as Marcus coordinated with Luis over the phone. His voice stayed calm and reassuring, never rushing, never showing the urgency she knew he must be feeling. Here we go, Lily. Start counting. 1, 2, 3. The hallway lights dimmed slightly. 4, 5, 6. A mechanical whirring sound came from behind the walls. 7, 8, 9, 10. The elevator doors slid open with a soft ding. Lily Patterson stood inside, a small girl with pigtails and tear-streaked cheeks, clutching a handful of mail to her chest. She looked around at the group of adults staring at her and managed a wobbly smile. "Grandma!" Mrs. Patterson swept her granddaughter into a fierce hug. "Oh, thank goodness. You scared me so much." "I wasn't really scared," Lily said into her grandmother's shoulder. "Marcus told me to be brave." Charlie felt something warm and unexpected bloom in her chest as she watched Marcus kneel down to Lily's level. "You were the bravest," he told her seriously. "Counting like that helped us know you were okay." "My mom says I'm good at counting. I can count by 5s and 10s, and everything." "That's a very important skill," Marcus said with complete sincerity. Mrs. Patterson looked between Charlie and Marcus with grateful eyes. "I don't know how to thank you both." "Just part of the job," Charlie said, though her heart was still racing. After Mrs. Patterson and Lily headed upstairs, Charlie and Marcus walked slowly back toward the office. The late afternoon sun had shifted, casting the lobby in golden light. "That was—" Charlie started, then realized she didn't know how to finish the sentence. "A good thing it worked," Marcus said. "Sometimes the old elevator tricks don't." "You were really good with her. With Lily." Marcus glanced at her, and for the first time since he'd arrived, his professional mask slipped a little. "I have some experience with kids." There was something in his tone that suggested more to that story, but Charlie didn't push. Instead, she found herself really looking at him for the first time. The way he'd handled the emergency with calm competence. How he'd known exactly what to say to keep a scared child calm. The way he'd stepped in to help without being asked. "We should finish your interview," she said as they reached her office door. "If you still want to." Charlie turned to study his face. "Why wouldn't I?" Marcus met her eyes steadily. "I heard what you said when I came in." The words hit Charlie like a physical blow. She felt her face burn with shame and embarrassment. All her professional composure crumbled. "Marcus, It's okay," he said quietly. "People are entitled to their preferences." "No, it's not okay. What I said was—" She struggled for words. "It was ignorant and wrong, and you didn't deserve to hear that. Especially not right before we met." Marcus was quiet for a long moment, studying her face. "Can I ask why you said it?" Charlie wanted to disappear into the floor. She thought about making excuses, blaming stress or bad dates or her mother's disapproving voice in her head. But looking at Marcus, at this man who'd just spent 20 minutes calmly rescuing a child, she found she couldn't lie. "Honestly, I don't have a good reason. It was stupid and hurtful, and I'm sorry you had to hear it." "I appreciate that," Marcus said after a pause. "And I'd still like the job, if you think I'm qualified." Charlie blinked. "You still want to work here, after what I said?" "You handled that emergency well," Marcus said. "You cared about getting that little girl out safely. That tells me something about who you are when it matters." His words made Charlie feel even worse somehow. She didn't deserve his understanding or forgiveness. "Let me ask you something," she said as they settled back into their chairs. "That was some pretty specific knowledge about elevator systems. Where'd you learn that?" "Previous job was at a high-rise downtown. Maintenance and security overlap a lot in older buildings." Marcus relaxed slightly as the conversation moved to safer ground. "You learn to troubleshoot things when you're working nights." "And you want to work nights here because—" Marcus hesitated, and Charlie could see him weighing how much to share. "I have a daughter," he said finally. "She's 7. Night work means I'm home when she gets out of school." The pieces clicked into place for Charlie. His calm with Lily. The need for reliable hours. The way he'd said, "Reliability matters." That makes sense, she said. Do you have help with her in the mornings? She's in an after-school program until I pick her up. Mornings are tight, but we manage. Marcus straightened in his chair. It won't interfere with work. I'm good at compartmentalizing. Charlie believed him. Everything about Marcus Hale suggested someone who took his responsibilities seriously. Okay, she said, making a decision that surprised her. I'd like to offer you a 30-day trial period. 4 nights a week, Wednesday through Saturday, 10 to 6. After that, if everything goes well, we'll make it permanent. Marcus's shoulders relaxed, and his smile was the first truly unguarded expression she'd seen from him. Thank you. I won't let you down. I believe that, Charlie said, and realized she meant it. They spent the next 20 minutes going over building policies, emergency procedures, and patrol routes. Marcus asked thoughtful questions and took notes in neat handwriting. When they finished, he shook her hand with a firm grip. I'll see you tomorrow night at 10, he said. Welcome to Riverside Commons, Charlie replied. After he left, Charlie sat alone in her office as the sun finished setting outside her window. She thought about the way Marcus had knelt down to talk to Lily, the steady calm in his voice during the elevator crisis, the quiet dignity with which he'd accepted her apology. She also thought about the thoughtless words that had started this whole afternoon, words that came from somewhere ugly inside her that she didn't like to examine too closely. Her phone buzzed with a text from Kayla. Girl, we need to talk. Charlie sighed and gathered her things. She had a feeling this conversation was going to be just as uncomfortable as her interview with Marcus. But maybe it was time for some uncomfortable conversations. Maybe it was time to figure out why she'd said something so wrong in the first place. As she locked up the office, Charlie found herself looking forward to tomorrow night. Not because she was interested in Marcus, that would be completely inappropriate, but because she was curious to see how he'd handle the job. At least, that's what she told herself as she walked out into the Chicago evening, trying not to think about kind eyes and a voice that could calm a scared child. Marcus arrived at Riverside Commons 15 minutes early for his first shift, wearing dark jeans and a navy polo shirt that made him look professional but approachable. He carried a small thermos of coffee and a notebook, ready to prove himself worthy of Charlie's trust. Luis Ortega was waiting in the lobby, his weathered face skeptical, but not unfriendly. The maintenance supervisor had been working at Riverside Commons for 8 years and had seen plenty of security guards come and go. You the new night guy? Luis asked, looking Marcus up and down. That's right, Marcus Hale. He extended his hand, which Luis shook briefly. Luis, I run maintenance. Charlie says you know your way around buildings. Some. I'm here to learn whatever you think I need to know. Luis grunted approvingly. Good answer. Come on, I'll show you the real tour. For the next hour, Luis walked Marcus through the building's quirks and secrets. The basement boiler that made weird noises but was perfectly fine. The third-floor hallway light that flickered when it rained. The way Elevator A sometimes stuck on the 5th floor if you pressed the button too fast. Tenant in 7C has insomnia, Luis explained as they checked the stairwells. She walks the halls sometimes around midnight. Don't scare her. Mrs. Chen in 2B feeds stray cats in the courtyard after 11. Don't mention it to Charlie. Marcus took notes, asking questions that showed he was listening. Luis found himself warming to the new guy despite his usual caution with security staff. Most of the guards we get are either wannabe cops or college kids who sleep through their shifts, Luis said as they finished the rounds. You seem different. Different how? Like you actually want to be here. Marcus considered this. I do want to be here. My daughter needs me to have steady work. How old? 7. Eva. She's in 2nd grade. Luis nodded. My grandson's 8. Good age. They still think you know everything. For now. Marcus said with a smile. I figure I've got maybe 2 more years before she realizes I'm making it up as I go. By the time Luis left at 11, Marcus felt confident about the building's layout and routines. He settled into the small security office behind the main desk, reviewing the logbook and familiarizing himself with the emergency protocols. At 11:30, Mrs. Chen shuffled through the lobby in her slippers, carrying a small bag of cat food. She nodded at Marcus through the office window, and he nodded back without comment. At midnight, the insomniac from 7C, a thin woman in her 50s, walked slowly down the main staircase and back up, her footsteps echoing softly through the building. Marcus made his rounds every hour, checking doors and making sure the hallway lights were working. The building settled around him with the comfortable sounds of people sleeping safely in their homes. It felt good to be the one watching over them. At 3 a.m., his phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Hope first night is going well. Charlie. Marcus stared at the message for a moment, surprised by the thoughtful gesture. He typed back, All quiet. Building feels secure. Her response came quickly. Good. Sleep well when you get home. Marcus smiled as he put his phone away. Charlie Whitmore was hard to figure out. Yesterday's interview had shown him glimpses of someone struggling with her own prejudices, but also someone willing to admit when she was wrong. The way she'd handled the elevator emergency told him she genuinely cared about the tenant's safety. And now this text, checking on his first night like she actually worried about how he was settling in. The rest of his shift passed quietly. At 6 a.m., Marcus completed his final patrol and wrote up a detailed report for Charlie, noting the flickering light Luis had mentioned and the fact that the courtyard gate's lock was getting sticky. He left the report on Charlie's desk and headed home as the sun rose over Chicago, feeling satisfied with his first night at Riverside Commons. Charlie found Marcus's report when she arrived at 8 a.m., and reading it made her smile despite her exhaustion. It was thorough without being excessive, professional but warm. He'd even included a note about Mrs. Chen's late-night cat feeding, asking if there was a building policy he should know about, rather than reporting it as a violation. He's good, Kayla said, reading over Charlie's shoulder. Detailed but not paranoid. Luis likes him too. Luis told you that? Didn't have to. Luis complains about everything. He hasn't said one word against Marcus, which means he approves. Charlie tucked the report into her filing system and tried to focus on her morning routine. Property management required constant attention, maintenance requests, tenant complaints, board communications, vendor coordination. But she found her thoughts drifting to Marcus's neat handwriting and the thoughtful way he'd approached his first shift. Around 10 o'clock, her phone rang. The caller ID made her stomach clench. Mom. Hi, Diane, Charlie said, using her mother's first name as a small act of rebellion. Charlotte, I need to stop by the office this morning. Board business. Diane Whitmore served as chair of Riverside Commons Board of Directors, a position she took very seriously. She also took very seriously her role as Charlie's mother, though the two responsibilities often conflicted in uncomfortable ways. I'll be here, Charlie said, already dreading the conversation. Diane arrived an hour later, dressed in her usual sharp business attire. At 58, she was still striking. Silver hair perfectly styled, makeup flawless, posture that commanded attention. She'd raised Charlie to be equally polished, though Charlie had never quite achieved her mother's effortless authority. The Hendersons are moving out at the end of the month, Diane announced without preamble. Unit 5A. They're buying a house in the suburbs. I know. I have 3 applications already for the unit. Good. Screen them carefully. We want quality tenants. Diane settled into the chair across from Charlie's desk. Speaking of quality, I understand you hired new security. Charlie's defenses went up immediately. Marcus Hale. He started last night. And his qualifications? Excellent references, clean background check, previous experience with commercial properties. Charlie kept her voice level and professional. Luis gave him a thorough orientation. I'm sure he did. Diane's tone was neutral, but Charlie could sense disapproval lurking underneath. You know how important it is to maintain standards, Charlotte. The residents trust us to keep them safe. Marcus is very qualified to keep them safe. I'm sure he is. Diane stood and smoothed her skirt. Just remember that perception matters as much as reality. The residents need to feel comfortable with our staff choices. After her mother left, Charlie sat staring at her computer screen, feeling frustrated and unsettled. She knew exactly what Diane had really meant, and it made her stomach turn. The careful way her mother had said quality and standards. The emphasis on residents feeling comfortable. Charlie had grown up hearing these coded conversations, learning to read between the lines of polite racism that never quite said what it meant. Her mother wasn't explicitly objecting to Marcus because he was black. She was too sophisticated for that. Instead, she was questioning his fit with the building's culture. It was the same thinking that had led to Charlie's thoughtless comment yesterday. The assumption that dating across racial lines would be complicated with her family. The comfortable prejudices that lived in quiet spaces, never examined too closely. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Ms. Whitmore, this is Marcus. Quick question about the courtyard gate lock when you have a moment. Charlie stared at the message, thinking about her mother's visit and her own confused feelings. Marcus was her employee. She was his supervisor. Getting personally involved would be inappropriate and potentially problematic. But she also remembered the way he'd handled Lily's rescue. The quiet dignity with which he'd accepted her apology. The careful attention to detail in his first night's report. She texted back. Call me Charlie. What's the issue with the gate? Marcus stood in the courtyard of his apartment complex, watching Eva practice cartwheels on the small patch of grass, while he talked to Charlie about building maintenance. The conversation was purely professional, but he found himself enjoying the sound of her voice and the thoughtful way she considered his suggestions. The lock just needs oil, he was saying, but the mechanism is wearing out. Might want to think about replacing it before winter. Good catch. I'll add it to the maintenance budget request. Eva attempted an ambitious cartwheel and tumbled into the grass, giggling. Marcus smiled as she jumped up and tried again. Daddy, watch this one, she called out. Hang on, baby, Marcus said into the phone. Sorry, Charlie, my daughter's showing off her gymnastics. Don't let me interrupt, family. Time, Charlie said quickly. We can talk later. It's fine. She's just burning energy before dinner. Marcus watched Eva successfully complete a wobbly cartwheel. That was perfect, Eva. Who are you talking to? Eva asked, flopping down in the grass. My new boss. Her name is Charlie. Eva perked up with interest. Is she nice? Marcus glanced at his phone, realizing Charlie could probably hear his daughter's voice. Yeah, she's nice. Can I say hi? Eva. Marcus started, but Charlie's voice came through the speaker. I'd love to say hi to Eva, if that's okay. Marcus switched to speakerphone, and Eva bounced over to sit beside him on the bench. Hi, Eva. I'm Charlie. Your dad tells me you're very good at cartwheels. I'm getting better, Eva said shyly. I'm still learning. Miss Rodriguez says practice makes perfect. Miss Rodriguez sounds smart. I used to do cartwheels when I was your age. Really? Do you still remember how? Charlie laughed. I think I do, but I'd probably fall over if I tried now. Adults fall over a lot, Eva observed seriously. But that's okay. Falling is how you learn. That's very wise, Charlie said. Your dad must be proud to have such a smart daughter. Eva beamed and looked at Marcus. She's really nice, Daddy. I think so too, Marcus said, realizing it was true. After they said goodbye and hung up, Eva curled up against Marcus's side on the bench. I like Charlie, she announced. She sounds happy? What do you mean? Some grown-ups sound tired when they talk. Charlie sounds like she smiles when she talks. Marcus considered this. Eva had always been perceptive about people, picking up on emotions adults tried to hide. If she thought Charlie sounded happy? Come on, he said, standing up. Let's make dinner. You have school tomorrow. Can we have pancakes for dinner? Pancakes are for breakfast. But you make really good pancakes, and it's Tuesday, so it could be Pancake Tuesday. Marcus laughed. Nice try. How about grilled cheese? With tomato soup? With tomato soup. As they headed inside, Marcus found himself thinking about Charlie's laugh during their conversation. Eva was right. She did sound like she smiled when she talked. At least, she had today. Charlie worked late that evening, catching up on paperwork and trying not to think about how much she'd enjoyed talking to Marcus and Eva. The little girl's voice had been sweet and confident, and the obvious affection between father and daughter had made Charlie's chest feel warm and tight. She was reviewing tenant applications when her phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Starting shift now? Building looks good from outside. Charlie found herself smiling as she typed back. Thank you. Have a good night. She gathered her things and headed for the parking garage, but as she passed the security office, she could see Marcus through the window. He was reading what looked like a building manual, taking notes in his careful handwriting. Without quite deciding to do it, Charlie knocked on the office door. Marcus looked up, surprised. Charlie, I thought you'd gone home? Just leaving. How's everything tonight? Quiet. Luis left me some additional notes about the HVAC system. Marcus held up the manual. Figured I should understand how everything works. You don't have to learn the whole building in 1 week, Charlie said. I like to be prepared. Marcus set down his pen. Can I ask you something? Of course. Why did you hire me after what happened yesterday? Charlie leaned against the doorframe, considering her answer. She could give him the safe response about his qualifications and references, but something about the way he was looking at her, direct and honest, made her want to be equally honest. Because when that little girl was stuck, you didn't think about anything except helping her. That told me who you really are. Marcus was quiet for a moment. And who do you think I really am? Someone good, Charlie said without hesitation. Someone who cares about doing the right thing. The words hung between them in the small office, more personal than Charlie had intended. She could feel her heart beating faster, and the rational part of her mind was sending up warning flags about appropriate professional boundaries. I should go, she said quickly. Let you get back to studying. Charlie. Marcus stood up, and in the small space, they were suddenly much closer than before. Thank you for giving me a chance. Thank you for being worth it, she replied, and then felt her face flush at how that sounded. They stood looking at each other for a moment that stretched longer than it should have. Charlie became aware of small details. The way Marcus's eyes were darker around the edges, the faint scent of his cologne, the fact that she was standing in a dimly lit office with an employee she was definitely starting to think about in non-professional ways. Good night, she said, stepping back toward the door. Good night, Charlie. As Charlie drove home through the Chicago streets, she tried to convince herself that what she was feeling was simple appreciation for a good employee. Marcus was reliable, thorough, and good with people. Of course, she was pleased with his performance. But when she got home to her quiet apartment and found herself wondering what Eva had eaten for dinner, Charlie knew she was lying to herself. What she felt for Marcus Hale was definitely not professional appreciation, and that was a problem she didn't know how to solve. The next morning brought unexpected chaos to Riverside Commons. Charlie arrived at 8 to find 3 voice messages from Mrs. Patterson, 2 angry emails about a water leak on the 4th floor, and Louise standing in her office doorway looking grim. "Hot water heaters acting up again," Louise announced. "4th floor residents have been without hot water since midnight." Charlie sighed and reached for her coffee. "How bad?" "Bad. Enough that I need to call the emergency repair service. Could be all day?" "Great. What about Marcus's report from last night? Did he mention anything about the water heater?" Louise handed her a folded piece of paper. "He noted unusual sounds from the basement around 2 a.m., went down to check, marked the water heater's temperature readings. Smart thinking." Charlie read Marcus's neat notes describing the mechanical sounds he'd heard and the steps he'd taken to document them. He'd even sketched a simple diagram of the water heater's control panel with the unusual readings highlighted. "This is really helpful," Charlie said, genuinely impressed. "He caught the problem before it got worse." "Like I said, he's different." Louise headed toward the door. "I'll get the repair guys here, probably looking at 8 hours minimum." The next few hours flew by in a blur of tenant phone calls, insurance communications, and coordination with the emergency repair service. Charlie barely had time to think about anything beyond the immediate crisis. It wasn't until late afternoon that she realized she hadn't eaten lunch and her head was pounding from stress and caffeine. She was just considering a break when Kayla knocked on her office door. "You need to see something," Kayla said, holding up her phone with a slightly guilty expression. "If it's about the water heater, I already know." "It's not about that." Kayla sat down and turned her phone screen toward Charlie. "I posted this on my story yesterday without thinking." The image showed Charlie and Marcus standing close together in the lobby, both looking down at what appeared to be a maintenance checklist. Charlie was pointing at something on the paper, while Marcus leaned in to see better. They looked professional and focused, but there was something in their body language that suggested comfort with each other. Kayla had captioned it, "Our new night security guy is settling in great." "It's a nice picture," Charlie said slowly. "What's the problem?" "Someone screenshot it. It's being passed around with different commentary." Charlie felt her stomach drop. "What kind of commentary?" "Nothing too bad, but..." Kayla hesitated. "You know how people talk. Someone made a joke about you and the handsome new security guy getting cozy." "We were reviewing building procedures," Charlie said, but even as she said it, she could see how the image might be misinterpreted. The way Marcus was leaning toward her, the small smile on her face, the comfortable space between them that spoke of familiarity. "I know that. You know that. But your mom saw it." Charlie's blood ran cold. "My mother saw this picture?" "She called me 20 minutes ago asking about it. I told her it was just a normal work photo, but she seemed concerned." Charlie put her head in her hands. Of course, her mother had seen it. Diane Whitmore kept track of everything that happened at Riverside Commons, especially anything involving her daughter. "What exactly did she say?" "That she wanted to discuss appropriate professional boundaries with you. She's coming by at 5. Charlie looked at the clock. 4:30 p.m. She had 30 minutes to figure out how to handle a conversation she absolutely didn't want to have. Marcus picked Eva up from after-school care at 4:45, listening as she chattered about her day while they walked the 3 blocks home. "Miss Rodriguez says we're going to have an art show next Friday," Eva said, skipping along the sidewalk. "Parents can come and see all our pictures." "That sounds wonderful. What are you going to make?" "I'm drawing the city, the buildings and the sky and everything. It's going to have lots of colors." Marcus smiled. Eva had always loved art, spending hours at their kitchen table with crayons and markers, creating elaborate scenes that she would explain in great detail. "I'd love to see your city picture," he said. "You can come to the art show, right? It's at 5 o'clock. Marcus mentally checked his work schedule. Friday night was one of his shifts at Riverside Commons, starting at 10. I'll have to leave for work at 9:30, but I can definitely come see your art show first. Yay! Eva did a little dance on the sidewalk. Will Charlie want to see my picture too? The question caught Marcus off guard. Why would you ask that? Because she sounds nice, and she used to do cartwheels like me. Eva looked up at him with wide, serious eyes. Do you think she likes art? I don't know, baby. Why? Because if she likes art, maybe she could come to the show with us. Marcus felt a complicated mix of emotions at his daughter's innocent suggestion. The idea of Charlie coming to Eva's school, seeing his daughter's artwork, sharing that moment with them, it was appealing in a way that made him nervous. Charlie is my boss, he said carefully. It might not be appropriate to invite her to things like that. Oh. Eva considered this. Like how I can't invite my teacher to my birthday party. Something like that. But as they reached their apartment building, Marcus found himself thinking about Eva's question. Would Charlie want to see Eva's art? Would she enjoy meeting Eva's teacher and the other parents? Would she feel comfortable in that setting? Or would her family's disapproval make it too complicated? The questions followed him through dinner and Eva's homework time, creating a restless energy that he couldn't shake. Diane Whitmore arrived at Riverside Commons at exactly 5 o'clock, dressed in a charcoal gray suit that made her look like she was attending a board meeting, which, Charlie reflected, she probably was in her own mind. Charlotte. Diane settled into the chair across from Charlie's desk with the posture of someone preparing for an unpleasant but necessary conversation. Hi, Mom. I saw an interesting photograph today. Kayla posted it on social media. Charlie had spent the last 30 minutes preparing for this conversation, but her mother's direct approach still made her feel like a teenager caught sneaking out. It was a work photo. Marcus and I were reviewing maintenance procedures. I'm sure you were. Diane's tone was cool and measured. But appearances matter, Charlotte. You know that. What exactly are you suggesting? I'm not suggesting anything. I'm telling you that perception is reality in property management. The residents need to trust that their management team maintains appropriate professional boundaries. Charlie felt her temper flare. There's nothing inappropriate about working with my staff. Of course not. But when photographs suggest a level of familiarity that goes beyond professional necessity, it raises questions. Questions like what? Diane leaned forward slightly. Charlotte, you're a young, single woman in a position of authority. This new security guard is an attractive man. I'm simply reminding you that relationships between supervisors and subordinates can create liability issues. Charlie stared at her mother, hearing all the things Diane wasn't quite saying. The careful way she'd described Marcus as attractive rather than using his name. The emphasis on liability issues rather than personal concerns. I understand the legal implications of workplace relationships, Charlie said slowly. But I don't appreciate the implication that I can't maintain professional boundaries. I'm not questioning your professionalism. I'm questioning your judgment. The words hit like a slap. Charlie felt 20 years old again, being lectured about her choice of friends, or her college major, or her career path, always falling short of her mother's exacting standards. My judgment about what, exactly? Diane sighed, and for a moment she looked more tired than angry. Charlotte, you're my daughter. I want what's best for you. But you have a tendency to follow your heart rather than your head. I don't want you to make choices that could complicate your career or your life. Choices like what? Like getting involved with someone who could make things difficult for you. With the board, with the residents, with... Diane gestured vaguely. This is a complicated world, and mixing your personal and professional lives rarely ends well. Charlie felt something cold settle in her stomach. Her mother was being careful with her words, but the message was clear. Marcus was black. Charlie was white. Their professional relationship was fine, but anything personal would be complicated and difficult. "I think you should go," Charlie said quietly. "Charlotte, I need to finish up here and get home. Thank you for your concern." Diane stood, her expression unreadable. "Think about what I said. That's all I ask." After her mother left, Charlie sat alone in her office as the sun set outside her windows. She thought about the photograph Kayla had taken. The easy way she and Marcus had stood together, the comfortable focus on shared work. She thought about her mother's careful warnings about complications and difficulties. Most of all, she thought about Eva's sweet voice, asking if Charlie liked cartwheels, and the way Marcus had sounded when he said, "I think so too," about Charlie being nice. Her phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Starting shift. Hot water situation resolved?" Charlie stared at the message, thinking about professional boundaries and liability issues and her mother's disappointed face. She typed back, "All fixed. Your early notes helped a lot. Thank you." The response came quickly. "Just doing my job." But Charlie found herself typing another message before she could stop herself. "You're doing more than your job. You're doing it really well." She hit send before she could change her mind, then immediately worried she'd crossed some invisible line. But Marcus's reply made her smile despite everything. "That means a lot coming from you. Good night, Charlie." "Good night." As Charlie finally gathered her things to leave, she made a decision. Her mother's concerns about professional boundaries were valid, but they weren't going to dictate how she treated people who deserved respect and appreciation. Marcus was a good employee and a good man. If acknowledging that was complicated, then maybe the problem wasn't with her judgment. Maybe the problem was with a world that saw complications where there should only be simple human decency. The rest of the week passed in a careful dance of professional courtesy between Charlie and Marcus. She made sure their interactions stayed focused on work, shift schedules, maintenance issues, building security. He responded with the same careful professionalism, their text exchanges brief and businesslike. But Charlie found herself looking forward to his nightly reports more than she should. And Marcus found himself taking extra care with those reports, knowing Charlie would read them first thing in the morning. Friday arrived with unseasonably warm weather for October, and Eva bounded out of after-school care with extra energy. "Art show tonight," she announced, taking Marcus's hand as they walked home. "I finished my city picture and it's beautiful." "I can't wait to see it," Marcus said, genuinely excited. "What time do we need to be there?" 5 o'clock sharp. Miss Rodriguez says sharp means on time, not late." Marcus checked his phone. He'd need to leave for work by 9:30, which gave them plenty of time for the art show and dinner afterward. "Should I wear my dress-up clothes?" Eva asked. "Sure, this is a special occasion." As they reached their building, Marcus made a split-second decision. "Eva, what would you think about inviting Charlie to see your art show?" Eva's face lit up like Christmas morning. "Really? She can come?" "I don't know if she'll be able to, but we could ask." "Yes, ask her right now." Marcus pulled out his phone, suddenly nervous about crossing the careful professional line they'd maintained all week. But Eva's excitement was infectious, and he found himself typing before he could overthink it. "Hi, Charlie. Eva has an art show at her school tonight at 5. She was wondering if you'd like to come see her city picture. No pressure if you're busy." He hit send and immediately wondered if he'd made a mistake. Charlie was just leaving her office when the text came through. She read it twice, surprised by the invitation and touched that Eva had thought to include her. Her rational mind immediately listed all the reasons she should decline. Professional boundaries, her mother's warnings, the careful distance she'd been maintaining all week. But she also remembered Eva's sweet voice saying, "Charlie sounds like she smiles when she talks," and the genuine warmth in Marcus's eyes when he talked about his daughter. She typed back, "I'd love to come if you think it's okay. What school?" The response came immediately. "Lincoln Elementary, 3 blocks from the building. Gym entrance. Eva is very excited." Charlie smiled, imagining Eva's reaction to the news. Before she could change her mind, she headed home to change into something appropriate for an elementary school art show. An hour later, she stood outside Lincoln Elementary, second-guessing her decision to come. This was definitely crossing professional lines. If anyone from the building saw her here with Marcus and his daughter, there would be questions she wasn't ready to answer. But when she spotted Marcus and Eva walking toward the school entrance, her doubts faded. Eva was wearing a yellow dress and Mary Jane shoes, her hair in carefully braided pigtails. Marcus wore khakis and a button-down shirt, his hand firmly holding Eva's as she practically bounced with excitement. "Charlie!" Eva called out when she saw her. "You came!" "I wouldn't miss it," Charlie said, surprised to realize she meant it. "You look very fancy tonight." "Daddy helped me pick out my dress. Do you like it?" "It's beautiful, just like I'm sure your artwork will be." They walked into the school together, joining the stream of parents and children heading toward the gymnasium. Charlie tried to ignore the curious looks from other parents, focusing instead on Eva's excited chatter about her picture. The gym was decorated with colorful banners, and tables along the walls displayed artwork organized by classroom. Eva led them to the second-grade section, where dozens of drawings showed children's interpretations of their city. "There!" Eva pointed to a crayon drawing that showed a skyline of buildings in blues and purples, with a golden sun setting behind them. In the foreground, tiny figures walked along what looked like a sidewalk. But what made Charlie's breath catch was the small figure standing in front of one of the buildings. A woman with long brown hair, wearing what looked like a business suit, smiling and waving. "Is that—" Charlie began. "That's you," Eva said proudly. "You live in the building with us, so you belong in my city picture." Marcus looked at the drawing, then at Charlie's surprised face. "Eva, when did you add Charlie to your picture?" "Yesterday. Miss Rodriguez said we could add one more thing if we wanted." Eva looked up at Charlie with wide, hopeful eyes. "Do you like it?" Charlie felt her throat tighten with unexpected emotion. This child, this sweet, artistic little girl, had chosen to include her in a picture meant to represent Eva's world, her city, her important people. "I love it," Charlie said softly. "It's the most beautiful picture I've ever seen." Eva beamed and took both Charlie's and Marcus's hands. "Come see the other pictures too." As they moved through the art show, Charlie found herself relaxing despite the setting. Parents smiled and said hello. Eva introduced Charlie to her teacher as, "My daddy's friend, Charlie." Miss Rodriguez complimented Eva's inclusion of community helpers in her artwork, apparently assuming Charlie was a police officer or firefighter based on her professional appearance. "Eva has such a gift for including important people in her art," Miss Rodriguez told them. "She clearly thinks a lot about the adults who make her feel safe and happy." Charlie glanced at Marcus, who was watching his daughter with obvious pride and love. Eva had dragged them over to see her friend's painting of a family at the beach, chattering about colors and techniques with the confidence of someone who knew she was surrounded by people who cared about her. "She's amazing," Charlie said quietly to Marcus. "She likes you," he replied, his voice warm. "Eva doesn't usually warm up to people so quickly." "I like her too." They stood watching Eva compare artwork with her friends, and Charlie realized she felt more relaxed and genuinely happy than she had in weeks. There was something about being included in Eva's world that felt both surprising and completely natural. "I should probably get going soon," Charlie said as the art show began winding down. "You need to get ready for work." Marcus nodded, though he looked reluctant to end the evening. "Ava, time to say goodbye to Miss Rodriguez." Ava bounded back over to them, still glowing from the attention her artwork had received. "Charlie, did you see the picture of the park? And the one with all the cats? Miss Rodriguez says I can enter my city picture in the district art contest." "That's wonderful, Eva. You should be very proud." "Will you come to the contest if I win?" The innocent question hung in the air between all three of them. Charlie looked at Marcus, who was carefully not pressuring her either way. "If you win, I'll definitely want to celebrate with you," Charlie said carefully. "Good." Eva hugged Charlie around the waist. "Thank you for coming to see my picture. Daddy, can we get ice cream to celebrate?" "I think we can manage that," Marcus said. As they walked toward the parking lot together, Charlie felt the weight of the evening settling around her. She'd crossed a line tonight, not just professionally, but personally. She'd allowed herself to become invested in Eva's happiness and Marcus's pride. She'd let herself imagine being part of their small family unit, even temporarily. "Charlie," Marcus said as they reached her car. "Thank you for coming. It meant a lot to Eva." "It meant a lot to me too," she admitted. They stood looking at each other in the parking lot, Eva skipping ahead toward Marcus's car. Charlie could feel the same tension from the security office earlier that week. The awareness that they were balancing on the edge of something that could change everything between them. "I should go?" she said finally. "Yeah, me too." But neither of them moved for a long moment, and when Eva called out, "Daddy, ice cream," they both laughed, and the spell broke. "Good night, Charlie," Marcus said. "Good night." As Charlie drove home, she couldn't stop thinking about Eva's drawing. The careful way the little girl had included her in a picture of her city, her world, her important people. Charlie had been included in Eva's art because Eva saw her as belonging there, as someone who mattered in their daily life. The question that kept Charlie awake that night was whether she had the courage to actually belong there, or whether her mother's warnings and her own fears would keep her safely distant from something that was starting to feel remarkably like family. Saturday morning brought an unexpected crisis that would test everything Charlie and Marcus had been carefully building. Charlie was in her apartment, still thinking about Eva's art show and the way Marcus had looked at her in the parking lot when her phone rang at 9:15 a.m. "Charlie, thank God." Kayla's voice was tight with stress. "You need to get down here right now." "What's wrong?" "There's been a complaint about you and Marcus. Someone sent photos to the board with accusations." Charlie's blood turned to ice. "What kind of accusations?" "The kind that could get him fired and you in serious trouble with your mom. Just get here. Now." Charlie threw on clothes and drove to Riverside Commons faster than she should have, her mind racing through possibilities. Someone had taken photos of them together? At the art show? In the building? What had they seen that could be twisted into something inappropriate? She found Kayla pacing in the lobby, holding a manila envelope like it contained something dangerous. "Tell me," Charlie said without preamble. Kayla handed her the envelope. "This was slipped under the office door this morning. No signature, no name." Charlie opened it with shaking hands. Inside were 3 printed photographs and a typed note on plain white paper. The first photo showed Charlie and Marcus in the lobby yesterday, standing close together as she pointed to something on his maintenance checklist. It was the same image Kayla had posted, but printed and cropped to emphasize their proximity. The second photo was from the security office earlier that week. Charlie standing in the doorway, Marcus half standing behind his desk, both of them looking at each other with what could be interpreted as romantic tension. The third photo made Charlie's stomach drop. It showed her, Marcus and Eva walking into Lincoln Elementary together the night before. Marcus's hand was on Eva's shoulder, and Charlie was leaning down slightly to hear what Eva was saying. To anyone who didn't know the context, they looked exactly like a family arriving at a school event together. The typed note was brief and venomous. The property manager has been carrying on an inappropriate relationship with the security guard. This is unprofessional and makes residents uncomfortable. Something needs to be done before this situation becomes a liability for the building. Charlie read it twice, feeling sick. Someone had been watching them, following them, waiting for an opportunity to cause trouble. "Who would do this?" she asked. "I don't know, but Charlie—" Kayla hesitated. "Your mom already saw it. Someone sent a copy to all the board members this morning." As if summoned by her words, Diane Whitmore's car pulled up outside. Charlie watched her mother get out and walk toward the building with the measured pace of someone preparing for battle. "This is bad," Kayla whispered. Diane entered the lobby and surveyed the scene, Charlie holding the photographs, Kayla looking guilty and worried, the general air of crisis that seemed to fill the space. "My office," Diane said to Charlie. "Now." They walked to Charlie's office in silence. Diane closed the door and turned to face her daughter with an expression that mixed disappointment with grim satisfaction. "I warned you," Diane said simply. "I told you this would become complicated." "Nothing inappropriate happened," Charlie said. "These photos are taken completely out of context." "Context doesn't matter. Perception matters." Diane sat down and folded her hands in her lap. "Charlotte, the board received these images an hour ago. They're demanding an emergency meeting this afternoon." "Fine, I'll explain the situation." "Will you? Will you explain why you attended a school event with your security guard and his daughter? Will you tell them about the cozy late-night conversations in his office? Will you justify the obvious familiarity between you two that everyone can see?" Each question hit like a physical blow. Charlie realized that from the outside, stripped of context and intent, her relationship with Marcus did look inappropriate. "Marcus is a good employee," she said weakly. "I'm sure he is. But he's also a liability now." Diane's voice was calm and businesslike. "The board is going to require a review of his employment. Pending that review, he'll need to be suspended. You can't fire him for this. He hasn't done anything wrong." "He's not being fired. He's being suspended while we assess whether his continued employment creates a hostile work environment or liability issues for the building." Charlie stared at her mother. "A hostile work environment? For whom?" "For residents who feel uncomfortable with staff members who don't maintain appropriate boundaries." The coded language was back. The careful way of saying that some residents, or at least some board members, were uncomfortable with a black security guard who seemed too familiar with the white property manager. "This is wrong," Charlie said. "This is reality." Diane stood up. "The suspension takes effect immediately. He needs to return his keys and security equipment today." "I won't be the one to tell him." "Then I will." Charlie felt panic rising in her chest. Marcus needed this job. He had Eva to support, rent to pay, a life that depended on steady employment. And he was about to lose it because someone had taken photos of them doing absolutely nothing inappropriate. "What if I resign?" she said suddenly. Diane paused. "What?" "What if I resign my position? Then there's no supervisor-subordinate relationship to worry about." "Charlotte, don't be ridiculous. You're not going to throw away your career over—" "Over what? Say it, Mom. Over a black man?" The words hung between them like a challenge. For the first time in the conversation, Diane looked genuinely uncomfortable. This isn't about race, Diane said carefully. This is about professional conduct. Is it? Because if Marcus were white, would these photos even be a problem? Would anyone care if I'd gone to a white employee's child's school event? Diane was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was softer, but no less firm. Charlotte, I'm trying to protect you. This building, this job, your future. I've worked hard to create opportunities for you. Don't throw them away for someone you barely know. I know him well enough to know he's a good man who doesn't deserve this. Maybe he is. But the world isn't always fair, and sometimes good people get caught in bad situations. Charlie looked at her mother, really looked at her, and saw someone who had learned to navigate a complicated world by making careful compromises. Someone who had taught her daughter to do the same. But Charlie was tired of compromises. Tired of careful distance and coded conversations and the exhausting work of maintaining boundaries that existed only to protect other people's comfort. I need to talk to Marcus, she said. The decision has been made, Charlotte. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. After Diane left, Charlie sat alone in her office, staring at the photographs that had upended everything. The images showed moments that had felt natural and right, working together, caring about each other, being included in Eva's world. Someone had turned those moments into weapons. Her phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Good morning, quiet night, any issues I should know about for tonight's shift? Charlie stared at the message, knowing she was about to destroy his day with news that would change everything. But she also knew she couldn't let him find out from someone else. She typed, Can you come in early today? I need to talk to you about something important. The response came quickly. Is everything okay? Charlie closed her eyes and typed the hardest text she'd ever sent. Just please come in when you can. I'll explain everything. Marcus arrived at Riverside Commons 2 hours later, still in his weekend clothes, but looking concerned. He'd left Eva with a neighbor, promising to be back soon, though something in Charlie's text had made him worry he might be gone longer than expected. He found Charlie in her office, looking pale and exhausted despite the early hour. When she looked up at him, her eyes were red-rimmed, like she'd been crying. What's wrong? He asked immediately. Charlie handed him the manila envelope without speaking. Marcus read the anonymous note first, then looked at the photographs with growing understanding and anger. Someone's been watching us, he said quietly. Following us. The photo from Eva's school? Charlie's voice broke slightly. Marcus, I'm so sorry. This is my fault. How is this your fault? I should have been more careful. I should have maintained better boundaries. I should have... Charlie! Marcus set the photos down and looked at her directly. What are you trying to tell me? The board is suspending you pending a review. You have to turn in your keys today. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, processing the information. Charlie could see him thinking through the implications. Lost income, explaining to Eva, finding another job in a market where references mattered. How long is the suspension? He asked finally. I don't know. Maybe permanent, depending on what the board decides. What exactly are they reviewing? Charlie looked down at her hands. Whether your continued employment creates a liability for the building. Whether residents feel comfortable with the situation. Marcus understood immediately. He'd heard these coded conversations before, had dealt with situations that were never quite about what they claimed to be about. I see, he said calmly. Marcus, I want to fight this. I want to tell them. Tell them what? His voice was gentle but tired. That we haven't done anything wrong? That we're just friends? That I helped with an elevator emergency and you came to my daughter's art show? Yes, Exactly that. And do you think they'll care? Charlie met his eyes and saw a resignation there that broke her heart. Marcus had been through this before. The careful scrutiny, the impossible standards, the way good work and decent behavior could be twisted into something threatening. "I'll quit," she said suddenly. "I'll resign my position so there's no conflict of interest." "Charlie, no." "Why not? Then you could keep your job and then what? You think that would solve anything?" Marcus shook his head. "You'd be unemployed. I'd still be the black security guard that caused the white property manager to quit, and Eva would still have to deal with the gossip at school." "There has to be something." "There is something." Marcus stood up and pulled his keys from his pocket. "I can make this easy for everyone and walk away." "That's not fair." Fair stopped mattering the minute someone decided to take pictures of us and turn them into a problem. Marcus set his keys on Charlie's desk, along with his building access card. "This is how these things work, Charlie. You know that." Charlie stared at the keys, feeling like she was watching something precious being destroyed. "What will you tell Eva?" "That Daddy got a different job. She's 7. She'll adapt." "She drew me in her picture," Charlie said, and her voice finally broke completely. "She included me in her world, and now I'm the reason you have to leave." Marcus came around the desk and knelt beside Charlie's chair, his voice gentle. "Eva included you because you were kind to her. That was real. Don't let them take that away from you." "But I am taking it away. This situation, these photos, were taken by someone who wanted to cause trouble. That's not on you." Charlie looked at Marcus through her tears, memorizing his face. "I don't know how to make this right." "You can't make it right. Sometimes things just are what they are." They sat in silence for a moment, both understanding that this was probably goodbye, not just to the job, but to whatever had been growing between them. The careful friendship, the shared moments, the possibility of something more. All of it was ending because someone had decided their connection was a problem that needed solving. "I should go," Marcus said finally, standing up. "I need to get back to Eva." "Will you?" Charlie started, then stopped. What was she going to ask? To stay in touch? To let her know how Eva was doing? To pretend they could maintain some kind of friendship outside the building where they'd met? "Will I what?" "Will you tell Eva I said goodbye? And that I'll always remember her beautiful city picture?" Marcus nodded. "She'll want to know why you won't be coming around anymore." "Tell her I had to travel for work. Tell her—" Charlie wiped her eyes. "Tell her she's the best artist I've ever met." After Marcus left, Charlie sat alone in her office for a long time, thinking about Eva's drawing and the way Marcus had looked when he talked about reliability mattering to him. She thought about the elevator emergency and the careful way he'd kept a scared child calm. She thought about professional boundaries and liability issues and the careful dance of a world that claimed color didn't matter, while proving every day that it did. Most of all, she thought about the choice in front of her. She could accept this outcome, learn from it, be more careful in the future. She could maintain her job and her relationship with her mother and the comfortable distance that would protect her from future complications. Or she could decide that some things were worth fighting for, even when the fight seemed impossible to win. Charlie reached for her phone and scrolled through her contacts until she found the number for Luis Ortega. If she was going to fight this, she needed allies, and she needed the truth. "Luis, it's Charlie. I need to ask you about Marcus's work performance. Everything you've observed, all the details, and I need to know if you'd be willing to put it in writing. The emergency board meeting was scheduled for 3 p.m. in the community room on the second floor. Charlie spent the morning gathering documentation: Marcus's employment file, his incident reports, Luis's written statement about his work performance, and the building's security logs showing the decreased incidents since Marcus had started. She also printed out every positive tenant interaction Marcus had documented, including thank you notes from Mrs. Patterson about the elevator rescue and Mrs. Chen about his respectful handling of her late-night activities. At 2:45, Charlie walked into the community room carrying a folder of evidence and a determination that surprised her with its strength. The 5 board members were already seated around the long table. Her mother Diane at the head, Mr. Brennan from 6A, Mrs. Foster from the penthouse, young Mr. Kim who'd just bought into the building, and Mrs. Rodriguez from 3C. "Charlotte," Diane said formally, "please have a seat." Charlie remained standing. "Before we begin, I'd like to present some information about Marcus Hale's job performance." "That won't be necessary," Mr. Brennan said. "We're here to discuss the inappropriate relationship documented in these photographs." "There is no inappropriate relationship," Charlie said clearly, "and Marcus Hale is the best security guard this building has ever had." She opened her folder and began reading Luis's statement about Marcus's work: his reliability, his problem-solving skills, his respectful interactions with tenants. She read Mrs. Patterson's note thanking him for helping with her granddaughter. She showed them the security logs proving that incidents had decreased 30% since Marcus started. "This is all very nice," Mrs. Foster interrupted, "but it doesn't address the appearance of impropriety." "What appearance?" Charlie challenged. "A security guard doing his job? An employee attending a child's school event on his own time? 2 adults working together professionally? The photographs suggest a level of familiarity that goes beyond professional necessity," Diane said carefully. Charlie looked around the table at 5 people she'd known for years. People who'd watched her grow up, who'd supported her career, who'd always treated her with respect and affection. "Let me ask you something," she said. "If Marcus were white, would we be having this meeting?" The silence that followed was telling. Mr. Kim shifted uncomfortably. "This isn't about race, isn't it?" Charlie looked directly at her mother. "Because I've been thinking about every security guard we've had in the 5 years I've worked here. Remember Jim Morrison? He dated a tenant for 6 months. Nobody complained. Remember Tony Castellanos? He brought his kids to the building Christmas party. Everyone thought it was sweet." "That's different," Mr. Brennan said weakly. "How?" Another silence. "Marcus Hale is a good man doing good work," Charlie continued. "He's never violated any policy, never acted inappropriately, never given anyone any reason to complain, except that someone doesn't like seeing him work closely with me." Mrs. Rodriguez, who had been quiet throughout the meeting, finally spoke. "What exactly are you asking us to do, Charlie?" "I'm asking you to judge Marcus by his work, not by anonymous complaints and out-of-context photographs. I'm asking you to reinstate him immediately." "And if we don't?" Diane asked. Charlie took a deep breath. "Then you'll need to find a new property manager." The words hung in the air like a bomb going off. Charlie saw shock on every face, including her mother's. "Charlotte," Diane said slowly, "you can't be serious." "I'm completely serious. Marcus is being punished for doing nothing wrong, and I won't be part of that. If you fire him, you lose me too." "You're willing to throw away your career over this?" Mr. Brennan asked. "I'm willing to throw away a career that requires me to participate in treating good people badly." The board members looked at each other, clearly not prepared for Charlie's ultimatum. "We need to discuss this privately," Diane said finally. "Take your time," Charlie replied. "I'll be in my office." She walked out of the room with her head high, though her hands were shaking. She'd just gambled her entire professional future on principle, and she had no idea if it would work. But for the first time in days, she felt like herself again. An hour later, Diane knocked on Charlie's office door. She entered alone, looking older than she had that morning. "The board voted," she said without preamble. Charlie braced herself. "Marcus can return to work Monday night. Full reinstatement, no mark on his record." Charlie felt her knees go weak with relief. "Thank you." "Don't thank me. Thank Mrs. Rodriguez, who pointed out that we've never had fewer security incidents, and Mr. Kim, who said he's always felt safer with Marcus on duty." Diane sat down heavily in the chair across from Charlie's desk. "You surprised me today," she said quietly. "I surprised myself." "I raised you to be practical, to think with your head, not your heart. You also raised me to know right from wrong." Diane was quiet for a long moment. "Is there something between you and Marcus? Honestly?" Charlie considered the question carefully. "I care about him, and I care about Eva. I don't know what that means yet, but I know they're good people who don't deserve to be treated badly." "And your job? Your future here?" "What kind of future would it be if I had to compromise my values to keep it?" Diane nodded slowly, and for the first time that day, she looked proud instead of disappointed. "Call him," she said. "Tell him he can come back to work." After her mother left, Charlie sat staring at her phone for a long time before finally typing a message to Marcus. "The board voted to reinstate you. Full return to work Monday night. I'm sorry this happened, and I'm glad it's over." The response came 20 minutes later. "Thank you. See you Monday." Brief and professional, like they were starting over from the beginning. But as Charlie packed up her office that evening, she realized that maybe starting over wasn't such a bad thing. Maybe this time, they could build something honest and strong, without hiding, or pretending, or worrying about what other people might think. Maybe this time, they could just be themselves and see what happened. The thought terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. Monday evening arrived with the first real cold snap of autumn. Charlie found herself staying late at the office, partly to catch up on work she'd missed during the crisis, and partly because she wanted to be there when Marcus returned. At 9:45, she saw him walking toward the building through the front windows. He looked the same, navy polo shirt, dark jeans, thermos of coffee, but something in his posture seemed different. More guarded, maybe. More careful. Charlie waited in her office, not wanting to seem like she was hovering, but unable to concentrate on anything else. At exactly 10 p.m., there was a soft knock on her door. "Come in." Marcus stood in the doorway, professional and distant. "Good evening, Ms. Whitmore." Ms. Whitmore, back to formal address, like they'd never talked about Eva's cartwheels or stood too close in the security office. "Hi, Marcus. How are you?" "Fine, thank you. I wanted to check in about any changes to building procedures while I was away." "Nothing major. Luis left some notes for you about the heating system maintenance scheduled for next week." "I'll review them. Is there anything else I need to know?" Charlie wanted to ask about Eva, about how he'd explained the suspension, about whether Eva still had her city picture hanging somewhere safe. But Marcus's formal tone made it clear that personal conversation was off limits now. "No," she said. "I think you're all caught up." "Thank you." Marcus turned to leave, then paused. "I appreciate what you did with the board, the reinstatement. You didn't deserve what happened." "Maybe not, but things are different now. I hope you understand that." Charlie nodded, even though she didn't entirely understand. Or maybe she understood too well. Marcus was protecting himself, maintaining distance, making sure there could never be another complaint or anonymous letter. I understand, she said. After he left, Charlie gathered her things and headed for the parking garage. As she passed the security office, she could see Marcus at the desk, reading Luis's notes with careful attention. She wanted to knock on the door, to somehow bridge the gap that had opened between them. But she knew that Marcus was right. Things were different now. The easy friendship they'd been building had been damaged, maybe permanently. As Charlie drove home through the quiet Chicago streets, she thought about victories that felt like losses and fights that left everyone wounded, even the winners. She'd saved Marcus's job, but she'd lost whatever connection they'd been building. She'd stood up for her principles, but the cost was loneliness and the knowledge that some problems couldn't be solved by good intentions and brave gestures. Still, she didn't regret her choice. Some things were worth fighting for, even when the victory felt hollow, even when the person you fought for couldn't afford to thank you the way you wished they would. 3 weeks passed in careful professional distance. Charlie and Marcus exchanged polite greetings when their shifts overlapped, discussed building maintenance and security procedures, and maintained the kind of respectful working relationship that no one could possibly complain about. Charlie missed talking to him. She missed his thoughtful questions and the way he listened carefully to her answers. Most of all, she missed hearing about Eva, her artwork, her school projects, the small daily victories of a 7-year-old navigating the world. But Marcus had made his boundaries clear, and Charlie respected them. He was protecting himself and his daughter, and she couldn't blame him for that. On a Thursday evening in early November, Charlie was reviewing maintenance schedules when Kayla burst into her office with excitement written all over her face. "You'll never guess what just happened," Kayla said. "What?" "Eva won the district art contest, her city picture. Marcus just called to tell Luis, and Luis told me, and I thought you'd want to know." Charlie felt a surge of pure joy for Eva's success, followed immediately by sadness that she wouldn't be able to celebrate with them. "That's wonderful," she said, trying to keep her voice neutral. "She's very talented." The award ceremony is Saturday afternoon at the district office. All the winners get to display their art and meet the school superintendent. "Eva will love that." Kayla studied Charlie's face. "You could go, you know. It's a public event." "I don't think that's a good idea." "Why not? You care about Eva. She'd probably love to see you there." Charlie shook her head. "Marcus and I agreed to keep things professional. Showing up at Eva's award ceremony would cross that line." But even as she said it, Charlie knew she was lying to herself. She wanted to be there. She wanted to see Eva's face when she received her award, wanted to celebrate this moment with the little girl who had included her in a picture of her world. "Sometimes lines are meant to be crossed," Kayla said gently. After Kayla left, Charlie sat staring at her computer screen, thinking about award ceremonies and missed opportunities and the careful distance she'd been maintaining for 3 weeks. Maybe Kayla was right. Maybe some lines were worth crossing. Maybe it was time to stop being so careful and start being brave. Friday evening found Charlie standing in front of her closet, trying to decide what to wear to an award ceremony she still wasn't sure she should attend. She'd spent the entire day going back and forth, making lists of reasons to go and reasons to stay home. Finally, she pulled out a simple blue dress and comfortable flats. If she was going to do this, she might as well look appropriate for an elementary school event. Saturday afternoon, Charlie drove to the district office with her heart pounding and her palms sweaty. She'd crafted a dozen different explanations for why she was there, but none of them sounded convincing even to herself. The truth was simple. She cared about Eva and wanted to celebrate her success. The district office lobby was crowded with families and children carrying framed artwork. Charlie spotted the winning pieces displayed on easels around the room, including Eva's city skyline with its careful attention to color and detail. She was studying Eva's picture when she heard a familiar voice behind her. "Charlie!" Eva practically launched herself across the lobby, wrapping her arms around Charlie's waist in an enthusiastic hug. "You came? Daddy said you probably couldn't make it, but you're here." Charlie hugged Eva back, breathing in the sweet scent of her shampoo and feeling like something tight in her chest was finally loosening. "I couldn't miss your big day," Charlie said. "I'm so proud of you." "I won first place. Look, there's my ribbon." Eva dragged Charlie over to where her picture was displayed, pointing out the blue ribbon attached to the frame with obvious pride. "It's beautiful, Eva. Even more beautiful than it was at school. They put it in a special frame and everything, and I get to keep the ribbon forever." Charlie became aware that other families were watching them with polite curiosity, and she looked around for Marcus. She found him standing near the refreshment table, watching their interaction with an unreadable expression. He walked over slowly, his posture careful and guarded. "Charlie, I didn't expect to see you here." "I hope it's okay. I heard about Eva's award, and I wanted to congratulate her." Marcus looked down at his daughter, who was still clinging to Charlie's hand with obvious affection. "Eva, why don't you go get some cookies? The ceremony starts in a few minutes." Eva skipped off toward the refreshment table, leaving Charlie and Marcus standing together in awkward silence. "Thank you for coming," Marcus said finally. "It means a lot to her. She deserved to have someone celebrate with her. This is a big achievement." "She's been talking about you," Marcus said quietly. "Asking when you're going to come visit again, when she'll see you at the building. I've been trying to explain that grown-ups sometimes have to work differently, but she's 7, and it doesn't make sense to her." "Exactly." They stood watching Eva load a paper plate with cookies and apple slices, her blue ribbon pinned proudly to her dress. "Marcus," Charlie said, making a decision that felt both terrifying and completely natural. "Would you and Eva like to get dinner after this, to celebrate?" Marcus looked at her for a long moment. "Charlie, not a date, not anything complicated. Just dinner to celebrate Eva's award. She deserves cake and congratulations and people who care about her making a fuss over her success." "What about professional boundaries?" "What about them? You're not working tonight. I'm not your boss on Saturday afternoon. We're just 2 adults who care about a little girl who won an art contest." Marcus was quiet, and Charlie could see him weighing the risks and benefits. The possibility of more complications against the simple desire to let his daughter enjoy her moment. "There's a family restaurant near here," he said finally. "Nothing fancy, but they have good kids' meals and dessert." "Sounds perfect." When Eva returned with her cookies, she listened to the dinner invitation with growing excitement. "Really? We can all have dinner together, like a celebration?" "Like a celebration," Charlie confirmed. "Can I bring my ribbon?" "Of course you can bring your ribbon. This is your day." The award ceremony was brief but lovely. Eva stood with 9 other young artists while the superintendent praised their creativity and presented them with certificates. Charlie watched from the audience, applauding with genuine pride when Eva's name was called. Afterward, they drove separately to the restaurant, a cheerful family place with bright lighting and children's artwork covering the walls. Eva insisted on sitting between Charlie and Marcus, her blue ribbon still pinned to her dress. "Tell me about your picture," Charlie said as they waited for their food. "What inspired you to draw the city?" "Miss Rodriguez said to draw someplace important to us," Eva explained. "And I thought about all the places I go every day. Home, school, Daddy's work. And I realized they're all part of the same city, like pieces of a puzzle that fit together." "That's very wise," Charlie said. Cities are made up of all the places where people live and work and go to school. And where they make friends, Eva added pointedly, looking between Charlie and Marcus. Their dinner arrived, grilled cheese and tomato soup for Eva, burgers for the adults, and the conversation flowed easily. They talked about art and school, and Eva's plans for her next drawing project. Marcus told stories about Eva's early attempts at painting, which had apparently resulted in more paint on walls than on paper. Daddy had to repaint my whole room. When I was 5, Eva said with a giggle, I was trying to paint flowers on the wall to surprise him. What color flowers? Charlie asked. Purple. Big purple flowers with yellow centers. They were beautiful, but Daddy said they belonged on paper, not walls. Your father is probably right about that. As they ate, Charlie found herself relaxing completely for the first time in weeks. This felt right. Celebrating Eva's success, sharing stories, being part of a moment that mattered. The careful distance she and Marcus had maintained seemed silly in the face of Eva's obvious joy at having them both there. When dessert arrived, a slice of chocolate cake with a candle for Eva, Charlie helped Marcus sing, For She's a Jolly Good Fellow, while Eva made a wish and blew out her candle. What did you wish for? Charlie asked. If I tell you, it won't come true, Eva said solemnly. But it was a really good wish. As they finished their cake, Eva asked the question Charlie had been dreading. Charlie, are you going to come visit us again soon? Charlie looked at Marcus, who was studying his coffee cup with careful attention. I don't know, sweetheart. Your daddy and I both work a lot, and sometimes it's hard for grown-ups to find time to visit. But you like each other, right? You smile when you talk to each other. The innocent observation hit like a truth bomb. Eva was right. They did smile when they talked to each other, even when they were trying to be professional and distant. We do like each other, Charlie said carefully. Sometimes it's just complicated for grown-ups. Why? The simple question deserved a simple answer, but Charlie found herself struggling. How do you explain to a 7-year-old that the adult world was full of fear and prejudice and careful boundaries that existed to protect people from their own humanity? Sometimes people worry about things that don't really matter, Marcus said gently, and that makes it hard for other people to be friends. Eva considered this with the seriousness of someone trying to understand an adult puzzle. That sounds silly, she said finally. It is silly, Charlie agreed. Very silly. As they walked out to the parking lot together, Charlie felt the weight of the evening settling around her. They'd had a wonderful time celebrating Eva's success, but now they were back to the question of what came next. Thank you for dinner, Marcus said as they reached their cars. Eva had a great time. So did I. Eva hugged Charlie goodbye, holding on longer than necessary. I hope the silly people stop worrying soon, she whispered. Me too, sweetheart. As Charlie drove home, she thought about Eva's simple wisdom and the easy way the three of them had fit together over dinner. She thought about silly worries and complicated adult problems and the way Marcus had looked when he'd said they did like each other. Most of all, she thought about the choice in front of her. She could go back to careful, professional distance, protecting herself and respecting Marcus's boundaries. Or she could decide that some things were worth the risk of more complications. By the time she reached her apartment, Charlie had made up her mind. Some things were definitely worth the risk. Monday morning brought crisp November air and a determination that surprised Charlie with its clarity. She arrived at work early, before Kayla, before Luis, before any of the normal daily routines that usually filled her morning. She had a plan. At 9 a.m., she called Luis into her office. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest, she said. Luis settled into his chair with the wariness of someone who'd learned to be suspicious of unusual requests. What kind of something? In your professional opinion, has Marcus done anything inappropriate since he started working here? Anything that violated policy or made you uncomfortable or concerned? Luis was quiet for a moment, thinking. No, nothing inappropriate. Why? What about his interactions with me? Have you noticed anything unprofessional? You mean besides the fact that you two are obviously interested in each other, but pretending not to be? Charlie blinked. Is it that obvious? Charlie, I've got eyes. You light up when he sends those nightly reports. He asks about your schedule more than necessary. You both worked really hard to act like you didn't care when he got suspended. Luis leaned forward. But you want to know something? I've never seen either of you do anything that crossed a line. Professional is professional, and personal is personal. You've kept them separate. Until Saturday night at the restaurant. Ah. Luis nodded. Eva told my wife about her dinner celebration. Said you and Marcus finally acted like friends instead of strangers. Your wife knows Eva? Community center art class. Small world. Luis studied Charlie's face. You planning something? I'm planning to stop being scared of what other people might think and start paying attention to what actually matters. Which is? Charlie thought about Eva's blue ribbon and Marcus's careful smile and the way it felt to be included in something that mattered. Honesty, she said. Being brave enough to be honest about what I want. Luis grinned. About time. That afternoon, Charlie drafted a memo to the board of directors. It was brief, professional, and completely transparent. I am writing to inform the board that I intend to pursue a personal relationship with Marcus Hale. To avoid any potential conflicts of interest, I would like to discuss adjusting our professional structure so that Mr. Hale reports directly to Luis Ortega for all building-related matters. This will ensure that our personal relationship does not interfere with building management or create any liability issues for Riverside Commons. I believe this arrangement will allow both Mr. Hale and me to maintain our professional responsibilities while also pursuing personal happiness. I am happy to discuss this arrangement at your convenience. She read it 3 times, revised it once, then printed it and placed it in an envelope addressed to the board chair, her mother. At 5:30, she walked to Diane's office in the adjacent building where her mother handled her real estate business. Charlotte, Diane said, looking up from her desk with surprise. What brings you here? Charlie handed her the envelope. I wanted you to read this before I send it to the full board. Diane opened the envelope and read the memo silently. Her expression was unreadable, though Charlie could see her mother's mind working through the implications. This is what you want? Diane asked finally. Yes. And you've thought through the consequences? The potential complications? I've thought about the consequences of not being honest about what I want. Those seem worse. Diane set the memo on her desk and looked at her daughter, really looked at her, for a long moment. You love him, she said. It wasn't a question. I'm falling in love with him, and with Eva. I want to see where that leads. And if it leads to heartbreak? If the relationship doesn't work out? Charlie had been asking herself the same questions for weeks. Then at least I'll know I tried. At least I'll know I was brave enough to choose happiness over fear. Diane was quiet for a long time, staring out her office window at the Chicago skyline. I spent most of my life being careful, she said finally, making safe choices, protecting what I had, avoiding risks that might complicate things. And I wonder sometimes what might have happened if I'd been a little more brave. Diane looked back at Charlie. The board will approve your arrangement. Marcus is a good employee, and Luis is perfectly capable of supervising him. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Thank me after you've figured out how to tell Marcus what you want. That conversation might be harder than the board meeting. Charlie smiled. I know exactly how to tell him. Wednesday evening found Charlie standing outside Lincoln Elementary School at 5:15 p.m., holding a small, wrapped package and trying to calm her racing heart. She'd confirmed with the school office that Eva's class was presenting their Thanksgiving art projects tonight, and she'd decided that this was the perfect opportunity for honesty. She spotted Marcus and Eva walking toward the school entrance, both dressed nicely for the evening presentation. Eva was wearing the same yellow dress from her award ceremony, and Marcus wore khakis and a blue button-down that made his eyes look warm and deep. "Charlie!" Eva called out when she spotted her. "You came to another art show!" "I told you I wanted to celebrate all your successes," Charlie said, hugging Eva briefly. "How's the Thanksgiving project?" "It's a turkey made of handprints, but I painted it with lots of colors instead of just brown. Miss Rodriguez says it's very creative." Charlie looked at Marcus, who was watching their interaction with careful attention. "I hope it's okay that I'm here," she said. "I wanted to see Eva's turkey, and I wanted to talk to you about something important." "About what?" Charlie held up the wrapped package. "About honesty and choices, and being brave enough to ask for what we want." Marcus studied her face, and she could see him trying to read her intention. "Ava," he said gently, "why don't you go find Miss Rodriguez and make sure your turkey is displayed properly? Charlie and I need to talk for a minute." Ava skipped toward the school entrance, and Charlie and Marcus found themselves alone on the sidewalk as other families walked past them into the building. "What's in the package?" Marcus asked. "Something for Eva. But first, I need to tell you something." Charlie took a deep breath. "I sent a memo to the board yesterday. I told them I want to pursue a personal relationship with you." Marcus went very still. "You what?" "I asked them to restructure things so you report to Luis instead of me. That way, there's no conflict of interest or power dynamic to worry about." "Charlie, I know you're going to tell me it's complicated and risky and potentially problematic for both of us. You're right about all of that, but I've spent 3 weeks being careful and professional and miserable, and I'm tired of it." Marcus looked around at the families heading into the school, then back at Charlie. "What exactly are you asking me?" "I'm asking if you want to have dinner with me. A real dinner. Not a celebration or a work meeting or anything complicated. Just two people who like each other sharing a meal and seeing what happens." "And if I say yes? If we try this and it doesn't work out?" "Then we'll deal with that when it happens." "But Marcus, Eva included me in her picture of the city because she saw me as part of her world. Part of your world. Maybe it's time to stop being scared of that and start being grateful for it." Marcus was quiet for a long moment, studying Charlie's face in the gathering twilight. "What's in the package?" he asked again. Charlie smiled and handed it to him. "Open it." Inside was a small framed photo, the picture Kayla had taken of Charlie and Marcus in the lobby, the one that had started all their troubles. But Charlie had had it professionally printed and matted, turning it from evidence of wrongdoing into a memory of two people working together, caring about their shared responsibilities. "I realized something when I saw this picture," Charlie said. "We look good together. Happy, like we belong in the same frame." Marcus stared at the photo, running his thumb along the edge of the frame. "Charlie, if we do this, if we try to be together, there will be more complications, more questions, more people who think we're making a mistake. Let them think that. I'm tired of living my life based on what other people might think." "What about your family? Your mother?" "My mother wants me to be happy. She's starting to understand that might require some risks." Marcus looked toward the school entrance, where Eva was waving at them through the glass doors. "Eva adores you," he said softly. "I adore her too. If we do this, and it doesn't work out, she'll be hurt. I can handle disappointment, but watching her get her heart broken. Marcus. Charlie stepped closer to him, close enough to see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes. What if it does work out? What if we stop being so afraid of heartbreak that we miss out on happiness? Marcus looked at the photo again, then at Charlie, then at Eva, still waving excitedly through the school doors. One dinner, he said finally. One dinner. Somewhere quiet where we can talk honestly about what we want. I know exactly the place. Marcus smiled, the first unguarded smile she'd seen from him in weeks. Okay, let's go see Eva's turkey, and then let's see what happens when we stop being careful. Charlie felt something warm and bright bloom in her chest. Thank you. Thank you for being brave enough to ask. They walked into the school together, and Eva immediately dragged them over to see her Thanksgiving turkey. A riot of colors that somehow managed to be both artistic and completely turkey-like. It's beautiful, Charlie told her sincerely. The most creative turkey I've ever seen. Miss Rodriguez says I have a unique artistic vision, Eva said proudly. Miss Rodriguez is right. As they walked through the art display, Charlie found herself imagining more evenings like this, school events and art shows, and the small celebrations that made up a child's world. She imagined Sunday mornings and homework help and bedtime stories. She imagined building something real and lasting with Marcus and Eva, something worth all the complications and risks. When the art show ended and they walked out to the parking lot together, Marcus turned to Charlie with a question in his eyes. Saturday night? He asked. 7 o'clock? Saturday night, Charlie confirmed. Should I pick you up or... Let's meet there. Less pressure, easier escape routes if it goes badly. Marcus laughed. Always thinking practically. Someone has to. Eva hugged Charlie goodbye, holding the framed photo Marcus had let her carry. Are you and Daddy going to have dinner together? She asked, with the directness of a 7-year-old who'd figured out something important. We are, Charlie said. Good. I think you should be friends who have dinner together a lot. We'll see what happens, Marcus said, but he was smiling. As Charlie drove home, she felt lighter than she had in weeks. She'd been honest about what she wanted. She'd taken a risk. She'd chosen hope over fear. Saturday night would bring its own challenges and uncertainties, but for the first time since this whole complicated story began, Charlie was looking forward instead of looking back. Some things were definitely worth fighting for. Some things were worth the risk, and some things, if you were brave enough to reach for them, might just turn out to be everything you never knew you wanted. 3 months later, Charlie would add Eva's latest artwork to the small gallery on her refrigerator. A crayon drawing of 3 figures standing in front of a building, holding hands under a sky full of stars. The figures would be labeled in careful second-grade handwriting, Daddy, Charlie, and me. And underneath, in letters that took up half the page, my family. But that's a story for another day. This story ends on a Wednesday evening in November, with 3 people who found each other despite the complications, who chose love over fear, and who learned that sometimes the most important thing you can do is be brave enough to include the right people in your picture of home.